Dear friends, the world today is understood a lot from the planet Rahu. Rahu represents the sensual pleasures. Rahu represents the mind and its Maya. So, if you see the Western world, it is said to be dominated by Rahu. If you see the Eastern world, it is said to be dominated by Ketu. Rahu is your materialistic progress. Ketu is spiritual advancement, spiritual depth, so to say. So the world today is very much dominated by the Western ideals, Western ideas. And Rahu is taking hold over everything. For example, in the field of yoga, field of tantra, most of the resources you will find online are from the Western world, Western authors, Western teachers. And one of the main motivations for the Western world to get into yoga, to get into tantra was because they have reached the peak of material progress and now they were looking for something deeper. They were actually looking for a deeper pleasure, and pleasure is a function of Rahu again. So when BKS Iyengar went to the US and went to the Western world, they told him to teach the asanas, to teach the kriyas which can improve their sexual life. So they wanted to get more pleasure out of their orgasm. And they also realized that drugs, intoxicants, stimulants have certain kind of limitations. But again, drugs, intoxicants, stimulants which you can see so easily accessed even by kids in today's day and age is ruled by Rahu. Pornography, which is one of the biggest industries, the entire internet runs based on porn industry, because I remember a few years back in India they banned porn sites and immediately after 2 days they had to restart it because they realized that the internet service providers was not getting enough traffic. So it was a big collapse of the internet infrastructure and the demand, because people, 70% or 60 to 70% of internet usage is because of porn. And so now you will see why Rahu is so significant, how Rahu makes the world run. The people who are in power, most of us generally have this conception that they are corrupt, right? Politicians and people who are policy makers. Why? Because that is again the impact of Rahu. And some element of Rahu is required if you want to rule the world, if you want to dominate the world in any sense. For example, let's say, what do you call it? Now Rahu is making me forget some of the things I want to share. So the world is dominated by Rahu, so it's a world of distraction. Nowadays, if you go to any cafe, any restaurant, and you see people, they are usually scrolling something on their phones. They are not observing the world. They are not observing what is going on around them. They don't really care because they are engrossed in the phone. They are completely engrossed in the phone. Earlier, there was no looking at the phone for so long. The phone would ring. Usually, the ringtone would be quite loud. The phone would ring and we would pick up the phone. Before that, we had pagers. So, people were not even carrying their phones. But now, and the phone was only at home and you would talk on the phone. So, that is not a big influence of Rahu. But here, the influence of Rahu now is so big that you will see that people are always distracted and by the phone, by the smartphone. So the smartphone is one of the biggest tools of Rahu. It is one of the biggest, you can say, gift of Rahu to mankind, because it of course helps us to get a lot of convenience in our life. It helps us to get a lot of convenience. Again, after pornography, we would also have to see about food, because food is again giving us sensual pleasure. We don't need to eat 100 types of food. Nowadays in India, it is considered very uncool, it is considered very backward if you are eating Indian food. So you should be eating pizzas, people will go out and eat cold coffee or some kind of, Western food, pastas, and they want to go to the Japanese restaurants, the Greek restaurants, because The reason is again Rahu, Western, things which are from outside. You want to try new things and curiosity to try new things, which is always very great. So Rahu is not bad, Rahu is not destructive. It has to be used in the right measure, right? You have to take the medicine in the right quantity, and that is the same with Rahu. But the nature of Rahu is addictive, so we will try to do more and more and more and more. After we start look at our feed on the phone, we want to access more information. We will go on scrolling the reels, we will go on seeing for more and more and more and more. And Rahu gives you that instant, what we call as dopamine hit. So you will immediately start feeling, okay, this is good, now let me look at more and more and more. Let me look at more and more of TikTok girls. And there's a lot of food reels also. In India, you see a lot of food reels. So because of the morality issues, because of the sexual repression in India, people will feel with their family, in a family environment, they'll feel more comfortable looking at food reels. Because different kinds of food bloggers, some of them are even coming on TV nowadays. And you can see the rise of someone called Dolly Chaiwala. He met Bill Gates. So again, chai or tea is a intoxicant, it's a stimulant, so it is again associated with Rahu. And even the tea sellers have become celebrities, right? So what I'm saying is that this kind of escapism, this kind of pleasure pursuit that is coming is because of the heavy influence of Rahu. And what balances Rahu? What balances Rahu is centering. What balances Rahu is grounding. So to be centered. That's why I always tell my clients, when they have Rahu based issues, they are very confused, they don't know which direction to go, I tell them, do Trataka. Do the focusing on one point, which is the yogic exercise of Trataka, focusing on the flame of a candle. I also suggest to them that you should do grounding exercises, because you have to walk on the barefoot on the ground. You have to walk on the beach sand or grass or something, because that brings your emphasis from the head to the feet. So you are not too much in the head, you are not too much in the senses. The symbolism of Rahu is the head, it is a head of the demon cut off. And that is what the mythological story of Samudra Manthan, this is what you need to read if you want to understand Rahu. So Rahu has all the senses, but it does not have the way to integrate and digest the input it gets from the senses. Right? So if you want to be free from the influence of Rahu, try to stay away from your phone, try to stay away from your devices, because that is one of the prominent source of Rahu. Of course, where you're working,